watch the video, I guess. I don't know. Okay, if I was going to explain this to my husband, these are lacto-fermented berries. If you don't know what lacto-fermented means, watch a different video because this one's not it. What I did was I mixed a previously fermented applesauce into these berries, a little bit of water, a little bit of salt, a little bit of honey, and by leaving it out, it's basically like eating fresh fruit except a little bit tangy for the taste, and it was fermented. I don't know. What we're going to do is I'm going to show you how I made these and tell you how you can do it at home. Fresh raspberries. Alright, so I have washed and cleaned all my berries, removed the stems from the blueberries, got all the dirt off. So the recipe calls for 2 cups of berries each. I have 6 ounces, which is a little less than 1 cup each. I have 2 half-pint jars, and the recipe calls for pint jars. So I'm kind of halving the recipe, a little bit less than half. Now I'm just going to put the berries into their respective jars. Nothing too special, just filling them up. There are my berries. Now I'm going to decide which sweetener to use. I have organic honey and organic cane sugar. Here are my 3 lacto-fermenting options, which I will get to in a second. And I've decided I'm going to choose honey. The recipe says 2 tablespoons per jar. Since I'm doing a little less than half, I added about 3/4 of a tablespoon each. Next up is Himalayan pink salt. I'm adding about 1/8 of a teaspoon, which is half the recipe. You want enough to ferment it, but not make it salty. Now I'm going to decide my lacto-fermenting option. I have 3 choices here. I have an oat and water sourdough mix. That's just oats and water. This is a ginger bug fresh out of the fridge, and this is fermented applesauce, which I'll have a recipe for. So I think I'm going to go with my ginger bug for the blueberries, and I'm going to go with applesauce for the raspberries. Now what I'm doing is I'm straining out some of the ginger pieces from the ginger bug. I don't need that in my fermenting, just to get the liquid out. And I'm gonna use about 3 spoonfuls of this. My spoon is really shallow, so it's gonna be about a tablespoon, maybe a tablespoon and a half. Now I'm going to do the applesauce. I'm going to use a large heaping tablespoon. Just drop it right into the berries. Now I'm just going to mash up the berries. If you wanted, you could leave them whole. That's what the recipe does, but I kind of wanted mine to be more of a jam spread, liquidy type thing, kind of like a syrup. I think that for the blueberries, especially since they have a hard skin, you'd want to at least crush it a little bit just to penetrate that inner juice to get the liquid in there. So I'm just gonna mash, mash, mash until I am pleased with the consistency. Now I'm just adding a teaspoon of water. This is not necessary as they already had their own water, but I just wanted that little extra liquid just because, I don't know. I felt like that's what I was supposed to do. So I did it, and I'm not mad about it. Taste for good measure. Make sure sweetness is good and the consistency is right. I'm pleased with it. I'm blitting it. That's it. Now into the raspberries. I'm gonna do the same thing, mash them up. You could leave these whole. I think you'd want to bruise them just to get the juices going. Same thing, add another teaspoon of water. If you wanted it to be thicker, you don't need to add the water, but I don't mind it. And of course, taste. Ooh, it's tasting so good. Berry raspberry, not too sour, not too sweet. It's not overly sweet, it's not overly sour, it's really nice. So if you know anything about the magic of video editing, You can lose videos. I think I overloaded my storage. Doesn't matter, you don't care for berries, okay. The video where I checked it after 24 hours is vanished. It's in the cloud. I don't know where it went. I showed you how the raspberries look versus the blueberries. So I used the applesauce in the raspberries and the ginger bug in the blueberries. The raspberries were done. After 24 hours, they were perfect. They weren't alcohol, but they weren't just the sweet honey raspberries that I tasted before. The blueberries, they had way less activity. You could tell there was just very little bubble action. It looked basically like when I started. So I put the raspberries in the fridge. The blueberries, looked at it, not really bubbly. Tasted it, it just tasted like sweet blueberries. So what I did was I took about a half a tablespoon of applesauce, the one I used for the raspberries, and I put it in the blueberries, mix it really well, let it sit on the counter for another 12 hours. I usually have a layer of juice on the bottom with everything else kind of rising above it. That means there's a lot of activity. That means it's doing really well. So what you're about to see is what they should both look like. Go by your senses. If it tastes good, if it smells good, if it tastes like alcohol, you may have done too much. But they worked out really great. They both taste great, and it just took some trial and error. So here are the blueberries after I added the applesauce. I waited the 24 hours and nothing happened, so I put the applesauce. This is 9 hours after that, so a total of 32, 33 hours. And you can see they've gotten much more active, kind of gelatinous, and the layer of liquid is really what you're looking for, that all of the rest kind of rose to the top. So smelling it, doesn't smell overly sour, but you can smell a little tang. Tasting it, yeah, that's perfect. Perfect taste, not too sweet. So now they're done, and I can put them in the fridge with the raspberries. So that's it. That was lacto-fermented berries. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you can try it in your own kitchen. They are so tasty, and if you have a lot of leftover fruit or you just want to try something new, I think this is a great place to start. And yeah, go watch another one of my videos maybe. I don't know. Bye.